If there is one thing that is very certain, it is this: that the workplace is full of stress and anxiety, that we are feeling more stress and anxiety, and therefore the question is really important: why self-care is so important for our mental health. When it comes to self-care, I suppose there's so many different options out there. Today, I want to provide you with 4 different ways that you can look at different areas in your life and put together perhaps some ideas that will help you improve your self-care. Why is that important? Because we know people who take care of themselves have better mental health. A few years ago, I read an article in Harvard Business Review called "The Corporate Athlete," and I thought it was such a fantastic article. What it started doing was looking at ourselves in the world of work and comparing ourselves to the world of athletes. And so here was a comparison, because the athletes are people in which we expect to perform at their peak performance. And in the world of work as well, how often do we hear, the mantra, we want you to have peak performance, we want you to perform at higher and higher levels. And so what it did is it compared both worlds. And really, what's fundamentally different is the amount of time that athletes take to rest, to recuperate, how they deal with stress, how they prepare. And for us in the world of work, we're expected to be on at the same performance level 8 to 9 hours a day, sometimes 10 and 11 hours a day. It's impossible. But one other area in the corporate athlete that I found was very helpful was it broke down 4 areas for self-care. Today, I want to explore those 4 areas. So area number 1 is this. It is physical. So we know the connection between physical health and mental health. If we are taking care of ourselves physically, it has a direct consequence on our emotional health and on our mental health in general. And so therefore, it's important to ask ourselves some critical questions when it comes to our physical health and the energy that we're feeling. If there's one crisis in general, but in particular in the workplace, it is this: it is the lack of sleep. We know that a person generally needs somewhere from 7 to 8 to 9 hours of sleep, and we're just not getting it. People are surviving sleep deprived. And the problem with being sleep deprived is it has an impact in how we function. The other thing that's really quite surprising when I visit organizations, I talk with some of the clients that I work with, is the amount of people who are not taking a lunch break. Basically, the lunch break is an option which many refuse to take, and they just work through it. There is no break. And so we know that when it comes to physical and our physical beings, that we need rest, and that we also need opportunities also to exercise and opportunities to stretch the muscles that we have. And so therefore, I just invite you to kind of do a little audit on what's happening physically for you. Are you getting enough sleep? Are you drinking enough water? Are you eating enough food? Because we also know that if you don't drink enough water, if you don't eat enough food, that impacts how you show up. Are you taking enough rest during the day? It's very tempting. If we have an hour at lunch and we see that gap, to shove something more into that, but yet if we can resist that, the impact that we don't see is the energy that we're coming back to work with for the rest of the appointments that day. And that's really important when it comes to assessing how we're showing up. So I invite you to do an audit on the physical elements of your life and all those categories that go into it. The second element is mental. So much of our work requires cognitive thought. It requires the use, and that takes an energy as well. And so the question therefore becomes, are we able to give our mind a little bit of a rest as well? One of the methodologies that I use is called the Pomodoro technique. Pomodoro technique is that it's a category of high intensity focused moments followed by some breaks. They're normally 25 minutes followed by 5 minutes, another 25 followed by 5. You do that 4 times and then you get a longer break. And that really helps me. It really helps me focus just for that time, but then also knowing that I can take a break and then reorient myself and then focus once more. That has made me more productive in the long term. The second element then comes from the importance of the break. Hands up, how many of you have been in the shower or have been driving or have been walking, and all of a sudden, something in the back of your mind, a solution to something you think about, suddenly pops up. It's the eureka moment, which incidentally is supposed to have happened in a Greek bathhouse as well. It's because we're giving our mind rest. The more we tax our mind, the less able it is to be creative and come up with solutions. And so therefore, it's important to build into our routine some mental rest. Again, it's not time we're giving away, but rather it's time we're allowing a reset, and we will be amazed at the creativity and the possibility and the solutions that might arise. Area number 3 is our emotional life. So our lives are full of emotions. Our emotions are part of it. Part of what makes great emotional intelligence is the power to harness those emotions. But our emotional life is also based upon our self-awareness. And therefore, it takes time to become self-aware of our emotional life. It takes time to realize what are the triggers. Because when we have been emotionally triggered, very often the options that we decide narrows down. And we can find ourselves saying things, doing things that we regret later. And so therefore, it's important for us to be aware of what emotional triggers we have in our life. Are we able to name them? Are we able to look at patterns and how they happen? And then are we able to manage them in certain ways? You know, the shift from work to home or home to work is critically important as well. How often are we carrying emotions from one place to the other and are not aware of the impact of those emotions? That's where self-awareness comes in again. And so this ability to realize what we're feeling in the moment, to really answer that simple question, how are you feeling? And to be able to come across distinct emotional words of how you're feeling in that moment. People who provide great self-care for themselves are able to have a strong and a rich emotional life, and the basis, the foundation of that is based on their self-awareness. And the final point, the final category for us to consider is our spiritual side. You know, all of us have a spiritual side. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be religious, but it has to be a part that we are feeding ourselves to really think beyond ourselves. You know, one of the best ways we can do that is to make sure that we are aligning the values that we live in our life with what we are doing. Now, there's a little something in there that we need to consider. First of all, do you know what values you live by? You know, a really powerful exercise, and you can find it all over the internet if you just type in list of different values, list of values, and you pull them down and you just spend a little bit of time going through each value and seeing, is that something that resonates for me? Is that something of value? Is that something that I hold important in my life? And then as you go through the list, you might have highlighted maybe 10 or 15, and then go through it again. And then try and come out with 3 to 5 different values. Try and hover over these values which are at the core of who I am and how I live my life. And then the second question to ask after you've done that is, how am I living my life according to the values? Is my work life helping me live by these values? Because if there is a disconnect between what we value and what we do, it's going to impact us spiritually. We're not going to feel good. We're not going to feel good about what we do. Our self-care is critically important in how we show up. I invite you, today to do a little audit, to look at how are you caring for yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and really investigate, are there any changes, any little steps that you would like to make today? If you've enjoyed this video, I invite you to watch the next video, which looks at the power of mindfulness and how we can use mindfulness in the workplace.